more oversight and transparency and visibility on disclosure of certain derivatives. That's important, but I don't think that regulation is the whole answer. I think there has been the hedge funds are in fact required to report their positions if they outright own more than 5% of an underlying company, and that they have to disclose through 13D within 10 days of doing that. Now, when it comes to derivatives, we don't have similar type of disclosure, and this is where this is happening. And so therefore, I think more transparency and more light on large positions held against derivatives is a very useful thing. In fact, part of the Dodd-Frank Act required more disclosure in this area. However, I think family office, which is what Archegos is classified as, is exempt from that. And also the implementation of the Dodd-Frank Act has taken a very long time. So I think the SEC really should be looking at, more disclosure. But the way, I say that regulation is not the whole answer is because, at the end of the day, we do have regulation oversight. But again and again, this type of thing happens when it comes to derivatives and counterparty risk. And, parties take very concentrated positions with very large amount of leverage. And so I think that ultimately it still behooves the individuals involved, whether it's be the hedge fund involved and also the prime brokers. It's extremely important for these entities to ultimately have their very tight internal controls. So I think oversight is important, but that's unlikely to be the sort of providing the entire answer.
Some talk about the onus being put squarely on banks, ring fencing at banks, separating some of those good versus bad loans so that we don't see any contagion, so to speak.
Yeah, it is true. You see, I think that in this particular instance, we have multiple large international investment banks involved. Some are affected a little less than others. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley affected a little less because they were able to exit those positions earlier, but Credit Suisse and Nomura are affected a lot more. So I think that there are differences in terms of the internal controls, clearly, at least from peering from the outside. That seems to be that, certain banks had less exposure and others had more. Credit Suisse, in this particular instance, actually, there were sort of two bad problems in a row. It was just about a couple of weeks ago, the blow up of Greensill, and now suddenly this Archegos issue as well. So I think that it's extremely important for those banks, inside those banks, to have their internal controls. There almost seems to be an incidence of prime brokers, pressuring the sort of investment banking and fee-making side of the bank, pressuring the risk control side to perhaps, overextend themselves and overexpose to a particular client. We do know that Archegos was on the bad list in terms of the SEC, as well as a lot of the banks, 10 years ago in 2012, they were charged under insider trading. And eventually the firm crept back up to these banks' books and ultimately leading to this large position. So I think, yes, ways to tightening those controls and ring fencing those very large leveraged positions would be an important thing.